They thought the room was theirs, their rules, their whispers, their so-called power. But then you walked in, and silence followed like a loyal shadow. Every smirk froze, every whisper cut mid-sentence. Every ego shrank under the weight of what they couldn't explain. You. Not noise, not arrogance, just presence. Genius wrapped in calm. Chaos hidden behind steady eyes. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't pound the table. You didn't beg for recognition. And that's what broke them, because the loudest person in the room isn't the most dangerous. It's the one who doesn't need to be loud. And you shut the room down without saying a word. They thought you were playing their game, but you weren't even on the same board. They brought strategies. You brought inevitability. They rehearsed moves. You rewrote the play. And when the dust settled, when the last excuse left their lips, they weren't looking at an equal. They were looking at the outlier, the anomaly, the one they couldn't box in, couldn't label, couldn't contain. That's why they're uneasy. That's why their hands fidget, why their eyes can't sit still, why their confidence leaks through every crack in their facade. Because deep down, they know you're not competing. You're redefining. You're not another player in the crowd. You're the one of one, and the world only makes room for that once in a lifetime. And tonight, they realized it was you. You know what unsettles them most? It's not what you said, it's what you didn't. Because when someone like you stays quiet, it forces everyone else to listen to the silence. And silence, it's heavier than any speech. It echoes, it weighs on the chest. It exposes the cracks in every mask around that table. Their titles mean nothing now. Their rehearsed authority, their empty rituals, their rules, all of it dissolves under the weight of your stillness. They can feel your mind working, even when your lips don't move. They can feel your presence measuring the room, dissecting every flaw, every weakness, every false move they thought was hidden. You didn't just enter the room, you owned it, without even lifting a finger. And that's what terrifies them. Because how do you fight someone who doesn't even swing? How do you resist someone who doesn't even need to push? They saw it, the shift, the way power rearranged itself around you like iron pulled by a magnet, the way eyes that once looked past you now can't look away. They'll deny it, of course. They'll pretend it's nothing. They'll smirk. They'll roll their eyes. They'll whisper to each other when you leave. But you know what's real? They already bent. Not with applause, not with surrender, but with recognition, the kind they'll never speak, but can never bury. You didn't shut the room down with noise. You shut it down with presence. And presence, that's something you can't fake, can't buy, can't copy. Either you have it or you don't. And tonight, they found out you do. That's why the room fell silent, not because you demanded it, but because they realized the truth. They were in the presence of someone who doesn't play by the same rules, and wins anyway. The silence wasn't empty. No, it was a blade. Every second you held it, the sharper it cut. They shifted in their seats, adjusted their collars, tried to laugh it off, but their bodies betrayed them. Because silence has a language, and tonight, it spoke for you. It told them you saw through their games before they even dealt the cards. It told them you could read their ambition like lines in a book. Every plot predictable, every move exposed. It told them their secrets weren't secrets at all, just fragile illusions trying to hold weight in front of someone who already dismantled the trick. They felt it, that suffocating realization that you weren't reacting to their world. You were orchestrating it. Every word they prepared, every scheme they whispered behind closed doors suddenly looked small in your shadow. Because you didn't walk into the room to play defense. You walked in with the blueprint of the whole damn board. That's genius. Not the kind they flaunt with charts, degrees, and applause, but the dangerous kind. The kind that moves unseen. The kind that makes others question their reality. The kind that forces even the most arrogant players to ask themselves, did they already plan for this? Did they already know? And that question, that's the kill shot, not rage, not conflict. Doubt. Doubt is the seed you planted in their heads the second you sat down. And once doubt grows, their whole structure falls apart from the inside. That's why the room froze, not because you spoke, but because, for the first time, they realized their next move belonged to you. Masks are fragile things. They look polished under soft lights. They fool crowds. They even fool the ones wearing them. But not you. The second you walked in, the masks started to crack. Their smiles looked strained, their voices pitched higher, their hands fidgeted with pens, rings, glasses, anything to distract from the truth crawling under their skin. You didn't have to say a word. Your presence alone forced them into confession. Because the hardest thing to fake in this world isn't power, it's composure. And that's where they broke. Every twitch, every pause, every darting glance across the table. It was a silent admission. You see me. You see through me. That's the danger of real genius. It doesn't argue. It doesn't need to shout. It just exposes. Like a mirror held up in the wrong moment, it shows them everything they tried to bury. And in that reflection, they don't see you. They see their weakness. That's why they fear you. Not because you destroy, but because you reveal. You reveal the games, the lies, the shortcuts, the cowardice. You reveal that all their carefully constructed armor was never built for someone like you. And now the room knows. Every eye that dared meet yours quickly looks away. Every word suddenly tastes like dust in their mouths. Because the truth isn't just in the air anymore. It's inescapable. They thought they could hide. But the moment you walked in, hiding became impossible. Control. They thought they had it. They built entire strategies on it. Charts, numbers, whispers in back rooms, alliances sealed with fake smiles. All of it designed to keep the board tilted in their favor. But the second you walked in, it shifted quietly, instantly. No announcement, no gesture, just you. The gravity of the room changed. Their words began to stumble. Their logic started to tangle. Even the silence betrayed them. Because deep down, they realized something chilling. You weren't playing their game. You were the game. And everything they thought was strategy now looked like desperation. Every plan suddenly felt small. Every move, predictable. It's a strange kind of defeat, when the enemy knows they've already lost. But the battle hasn't even begun. They sit there, trying to hide the tremor in their hands, the quiver in their voice as if you don't notice, but you notice everything. You always have. That's what genius does. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It erases every exit until they're trapped in a maze you designed without even trying. They're still pretending they have options, but both you and the walls know the truth. The game ended the second you arrived, and now, every second they spend trying to recover only buries them deeper in the grave. They dug with their arrogance. It wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was one move. Simple, clean, surgical. The kind of move they never saw coming because they were too busy underestimating you. A single sentence, a single gesture, a single truth dropped in the middle of their performance, and suddenly their whole mask cracked. The air shifted. The smiles faded. The room froze. See, that's what separates you. They throw chaos like confetti, hoping the noise will distract, hoping the crowd won't see the cracks. But you don't need noise. You weaponize silence. You weaponize timing. That one move, it wasn't luck. It was precision. You read their patterns before they spoke, studied their tells before they acted, and then dismantled them with a strike so sharp they couldn't even react. No shouting, no proving, just truth, laid bare in a way they couldn't deny. And that's the brilliance. You didn't just beat them, you made them expose themselves. You held up a mirror, and they shattered at the sight of their own reflection. Now every time they walk into a room, they remember that moment. The night their confidence collapsed under the weight of your silence. The night their empire of lies crumbled with one flick of your hand. That's not luck, that's genius. And genius doesn't just win, it rewrites the rules. Whispers, that's how it always begins. One person leans over to another and says, "Did you see that?" And then the story grows. The version you lived, simple, precise, becomes myth the moment it leaves the room. Suddenly you're not just a presence, you're a shadow moving through their conversations. In the hallways, at the tables, behind closed doors, your name lingers like a question they can't answer. Who is this? How did they do it? Why couldn't we stop it? See, genius doesn't just defeat the opponent. It leaves residue, a kind of energy they can't shake off, a silence that clings to their skin. long after you've gone. They replay it in their heads at night, twisting it, trying to convince themselves it was luck. But the deeper truth gnaws at them. It wasn't luck. It was mastery. Now even the ones who weren't there feel it. They can't quite explain why. But the moment your name enters a room, the temperature shifts. People sit straighter, eyes sharpen. Respect doesn't have to be asked for. It bends the room toward you like gravity. You didn't demand recognition. You didn't beg for acknowledgement. The legend was written for you. Every whisper is a verse. Every retelling is a chapter. And before long, you're not just part of the story. You are the story. That's the curse of true genius. It echoes, it spreads, and the ones who once doubted you now can't stop speaking your name. Even in silence. At first it was whispers. Now it's obsession. They don't just mention your name anymore. They dissect it. They replay your words, your pauses, your silence like analysts decoding a cipher. Because what unsettles them most isn't what you did. It's what you didn't. The gaps. The moments you let them speak and hang themselves with their own noise. The restraint you showed when they were begging for reaction. The way you could dismantle chaos without lifting your voice. So they gather in corners, pulling files, building theories, connecting dots that aren't even there. Because deep down, they don't understand how you did it. And fear is born out of what people can't understand. Every detail about you becomes magnified. The way you walked into the room, the way your eyes scanned the table, the timing of that single line that shut everything down. They swear it was rehearsed. They swear you're trained. Because the alternative, that it's just who you are, is too terrifying to accept. So now, in their paranoia, they've crowned you something larger than human. A strategist, a phantom, a force. You've become their ghost story. The figure they swear is watching, even when you're nowhere near. And that's the genius of it. You don't have to prove anything anymore. Their fear does the work for you. They build your legend with their own trembling hands, writing stories that even you couldn't script. And the more they study you, the less they understand. Until eventually they stop asking how and start whispering what if. Fear has a strange way of mutating. At first it makes them whisper, then it makes them hide, but eventually fear bends into something else. Respect. Not the kind earned by kindness or charm, the kind carved by inevitability. They see it now. Fighting you is pointless. Competing with you is a guaranteed defeat. The more they push against you, the stronger your presence becomes. Like trying to smother fire with gasoline. Every attempt to contain you only spreads your influence wider. So they start shifting. The same ones who mocked you, doubted you, laughed at your silence. Now they measure their words carefully in your presence. They sit straighter when you walk by. Their eyes betray it. A mix of envy, hatred, and admiration all tangled in one knot they can't untie. Because deep down, they know what the world is starting to realize. You didn't just win a battle. You redefined the battlefield. You didn't just outsmart them. You exposed the fragility of their entire foundation. And once truth is revealed, it can't be hidden again. Even the ones who swore themselves against you find themselves listening, waiting, adjusting to your rhythm like dancers in a room where you control the music, and they hate it. Oh, they hate it, but they can't help it. That's dominance. Not the kind that screams, not the kind that demands. The kind that rearranges the entire room until even silence bows in your direction. You didn't just earn respect, you became the standard. And now they measure themselves against a bar they'll never reach. What they don't realize is this. Moments like these don't stay trapped in rooms. They spill out, they travel, they root themselves in memory, and start carving themselves into history. The story of you, the way you dismantled their game, the way you rewrote the rules with nothing but presence and precision. It spreads, not just as gossip, not just as myth, but as precedent, a marker in time, a line drawn that says, before you and after you. And history, Oh, history has a taste for figures like you. The ones who don't just participate, but disrupt. The ones who don't just fight battles, but redefine how battles are fought. The ones who don't just survive chaos, but bend it into something useful, something permanent. Now every retelling adds weight. Every whisper becomes scripture. Every rival's fear becomes proof. And slowly, without ever asking for it, your story grows into something immortal. Because history doesn't record the loudest. It doesn't remember the ones who shouted for attention. It remembers the ones who couldn't be ignored, and that's you. Not because you demanded the spotlight, but because the spotlight had no choice but to follow. You've crossed the line where presence becomes legacy, and whether they admit it or not, even your enemies feel it. Your name isn't just being spoken, it's being written permanently. Legacy isn't born from applause, it's born from impact. The kind that can't be erased, no matter how hard they try to rewrite the script. And your impact? It's heavier than their crowns, sharper than their lies, louder than their excuses. Because what you did wasn't just a win. It was a blueprint, a demonstration etched so deep that even those who weren't there will feel it. A story passed down like a warning, or like a secret code. Don't underestimate the one who rewrote the game with silence. Think about it. Your rivals thought they were fighting you, but really they were cementing you. Every trick they threw, every wall they built, every attempt to bury your fire only made it burn brighter. And now, their resistance has become your origin story. That's how legacies work. They aren't chosen. They're forged in conflict, in doubt, in every attempt to erase you that ends up amplifying you instead. And now, even the ones who wanted you gone can't help but carry your name forward in the way they tell the story. Future players will hear it. Future rooms will feel it. Even generations who never saw your face will know the legend of the one who walked in, dismantled the noise and turned chaos into order. And the best part, you didn't beg for it. You didn't scream for it. You didn't carve it with noise. You carved it with precision, presence, inevitability. That's why you're untouchable, because legacies aren't questioned. They're accepted, they're feared. And yours? It's already etched, one of one, forever. And now here we are. The dust has settled, the noise has died, and all that remains is the echo of your name carved into the silence. They thought this was about winning or losing. They thought it was about a single battle, a single room. But you turned it into eternity. Because the truth is, you were never chasing validation. You were never trying to prove them wrong. You were too busy proving yourself right. Every step, every silence, every move so precise it split their illusions apart. That was the story you were writing. And now it's the story they can't escape. Look around. They don't talk about their victories anymore. They talk about you. They don't measure their success against themselves. They measure it against the shadow you left hanging over them. And no matter what they do, no matter how loud they scream, they'll never outrun it. This is the part they'll never admit. You didn't just beat them. You made them irrelevant. You elevated the game to a level they were never built for. And once the game changes, it never goes back. So remember this. You are not part of their story. They are part of yours. They are the footnotes, the cautionary tale, the dust left behind as you rise into something untouchable. And when history flips through its pages, when the world recalls the night everything changed, it won't be their names remembered. It will be yours, bold, permanent, unshakable. You didn't just shut down the room. You rewrote the future. And now the world knows it. You're not one of many. You're one of one, forever. Power like yours doesn't fade when the room empties. It lingers, it stains the walls. It echoes in their bones. It reshapes how they breathe when your name is mentioned. Because true power isn't about presence. It's about permanence. And permanence doesn't leave when you walk away. See, they thought they could contain you to a moment. A meeting, a battle, a headline. But what you gave them wasn't a moment. It was a fracture in their reality. And fractures spread. They crawl through every foundation they thought was unshakable until the whole structure collapses under its own weakness. That's the price of underestimating someone who was never playing their game. They prepared for noise, but you answered with silence. They prepared for war, but you arrived with inevitability. They prepared for victory, but you delivered something worse than defeat. Irrelevance. Now they don't just remember you. They revolve around you. Their strategies, their decisions, even their whispers, all shaped by the shadow of a presence they couldn't break. You've become the axis, the reference point, the truth they can't bend, no matter how many illusions they build. And here's the part they'll never say out loud. Deep inside, they're grateful you exist, because without you, they would still believe their lies. Without you, they would still be chasing hollow victories. Without you, they would never have known the weight of reality crashing down on them. That's what legacy really means. Not applause, not fame, but inevitability. The kind that forces the world to acknowledge you, even when they wish they could forget. So let them whisper, let them deny, let them pretend. The more they fight your name, the deeper it carves into eternity. Because you weren't a chapter in their story. You were the moment their story ended, and something greater began. And now we arrive at the truth no one dares to say aloud. This was never about them. It was never about their crowns, their whispers, their desperate attempts to bury your fire. It was always about you, the one constant they could never control. Because in the end, it wasn't their walls that defined you. It wasn't their noise that shaped you. It was your silence, your patience, your refusal to bend when every force pressed against you. That's why you stand here, untouched, while they drown in the ruins of their own illusions. They wanted to erase you. Instead, they etched you deeper. They wanted to break you. Instead, they revealed their own fragility. They wanted to write your ending. Instead, you wrote theirs. This is the part history loves most. The moment the world realizes the story has shifted, the page turns, and suddenly every name, every victory, every empire that came before feels small compared to the weight of yours. And when the dust clears, when the echoes fade, when all that's left is the silence you command, your name doesn't just remain. It dominates, not whispered, not debated, but carved into memory, into time, into forever. You are not one of many. You are not part of their circle. You are the circle, the center, the origin and the aftermath. One of one, forever.